Welcome, folks. My name is Richard Wexler, and welcome to episode 11 of our podcast entitled Elder Ed, Education, Solutions, and Resources to Navigate Aging and Care. So, a quick recap. About 18 years ago, my wife, myself, our two small children began a 14-year unbelievable journey of taking care of all four of our parents. That then started and created our company, Points of Life, where we've been able to provide education, solutions, and resources for folks all over the country. We probably reached out to a few thousand people. We wanted to reach out to more, and that's why we started the podcast. So, folks that have been listening to me, we've talked quite a bit about different ways to care for our loved ones, whether that's mom, dad, in-laws, grandparents, etc. And one of those ways is an actual physical building called an assisted living. And we're going to talk quite a bit more today on this episode about that subject. What is an assisted living? What is it not? How does it work? So on and so forth. So I want to introduce our guest. Her name is Darcy.Sutton. She is a sales manager with Brookdale Senior Living. And Darcy can correct me if I'm wrong, but Brookdale is the largest provider of communities, facilities in this country. The last number that I saw, they had more than 1,000 of those buildings throughout the country. She works for one in Ontario, Oregon, and we'll let her in a few minutes tell us exactly where Ontario is for folks that may be listening around the country, around the world, etc. Welcome, Darcy.
Hello, Richard. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. How are you doing today?
Not too bad for a beautiful Wednesday morning where it's going to be about 100 degrees, I think.
I agree. You're not too far from where I resided, and it's probably going to be similar here. So, first question, where is Ontario, Oregon?
So, Ontario, Oregon, we are actually located about an hour from Boise, Idaho. We're actually right on the border of Oregon and Idaho. Fruitland is on the other side of the Snake River, and Ontario is on this side of the river.
Very good. Very good. Well, I want to start by asking you a few questions. And I find this first question really interesting when I ask guests, and there's usually a million reasons. Mine was the four parents. What got you into the elder care field?
Well, Richard, I've been in healthcare for over 30 years, and I've always had a soft spot for the elder population. And my last position, I was with a home health agency, and I covered all of the assisted livings in our community. And so they approached me and said, "Hey, what are your thoughts about being a sales manager in an assisted living?" And for me, that was huge because I love the elder population, and having the opportunity to spend every day with them and be in their home and help them was a huge deal for me. Plus, I only live about 3 blocks away, so it's kind of a win-win for me.
Wow, wow. So there's so many things you could be doing, and you've done a few of those in the elder care field. What attracted you to senior living?
Well, the thing is, the elder population, unfortunately, they're a dying breed, and at some point, we're all going to go that direction. But for me, it's just the comfort for them and for their families when they get to that point in their life. It's like, well, I can't be home. I'm not safe, And then, of course, everybody envisions when you mention any kind of elder care, you envision, a nursing home. And nursing homes are pretty much a thing of the past now. But we are, as I like to word it, we are an assisted living, and this is where people come and we assist them to live, unlike a skilled nursing facility. And they are a lot more like a nursing home because that's usually more for long term with folks that have a lot more ailments than they would at an assisted living. And so, probably, I'm going to say 50% of our residents that reside here are still fairly independent. And so, I encourage families, come here and let us take care of you. Let's take away your daily duties of the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and all those things, and let's have you come here so we can help you enjoy life.
Cool, and we'll get to some of that. I kind of want to backtrack a little bit because you talked about a term that I talk about a lot. I mean, in my experience in the 18 years I've been doing this, and you've been doing it even longer than me, when I talk to most people about the possibility of moving out of the house, let's say those individuals are 50 and on up, they look at me and go, I'm not sending mom to a nursing home. And I have heard that, and I'm sure you've heard it many, 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 many times. And so I try to correct them, as you're saying, there's really no such thing as a nursing home. There's skilled nursing, which I've talked about quite a bit on our episodes, where someone normally goes after they're trying to recover from a broken hip, from and then, maybe a stroke, something like that, but they're called skilled nursing. They're not nursing homes. If someone says that to you, well, I'm not sending mom to a nursing home. How do you handle that statement or question?
So a lot of that depends on if they live locally. I'm like, you need to come see us. You need to come in and you need to walk through our front doors, and you need to smell that it doesn't smell like old people. It doesn't look like there's no life here. You walk through our front doors, Richard, and it smells nice. It's beautiful. We've got beautiful pictures on the walls. We've got beautiful furniture. Our community is it's an older building, and we've been able to do so many upgrades to it. But I don't, I even now I go around to a lot of the skilled nursing facilities and the assisted livings, and when I come back to our community and I walk through those doors, I'm like, whoo, this is what it's supposed to be. There should be life, there should be light, there should be, activity and people visiting and people happy. And my mom is currently in a skilled nursing facility for some rehab. And, I go and I see her. And when I leave there, I just feel almost, heartbroken because I can't wait to get her back to my Brookdale, because I know that it's about life and it's not about dying. We talk about, this being their last chapter. Well, I don't want them to walk in and feel like, oh, yeah, this is the end of the road. I might as well just give up now.
Sure. No, and I appreciate that, and the way I talk about it a lot, people don't realize that skilled nursing feels more like a hospital, and it smells more like a hospital, and it
Yes.
acts more like a hospital. And when you walk in, many times you feel like you're in a hospital. Where I tell people that are old enough, assisted livings are beautiful. And many times, again, for people that are a little bit older, they remind me of the Love Boat. I mean, they're lovely places to live, as you talked about, nicely painted, not, nice decor. And it's something, and you just talked about, and I want to ask you a question. So, based on what you said, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you give tours to people, whether it be the son, the daughter, with mom and dad, grandparents, so they can actually see your building. Is that correct?
Absolutely. So what we do, we even have like virtual tours and things. So, daughter lives in California and she's interested about moving mom up here because she can no longer keep tabs on her. And I want them to. I don't like doing the virtual tours because, like I said, I want people to come in and see and smell and touch and be able to hear what our community is about. And we strive very hard, Richard, to make sure that when you come through those front doors, whether you're coming through the front door or staff's taking the garbage out the back door, that you're going to walk into this home. And the important part is I like my house to be nice and well kept and smell nice, and so I expect that every day when I come into my second home, as I call it here.
Sure.
So they're able to come in and see the apartments, and then we have our model room. So it's actually set up with furniture, pictures on the walls, TVs, and everything, like an apartment. And so we actually use that as what we call our respite room, where folks can come in for a short period of time for, let's say, 10 days. Daughter and son-in-law are going to be going on a trip. Mom can't stay home alone anymore. So they can come in for that 10-day stint. So, of course, what we like to see at the end of that is, gosh, this was wonderful. I love it. I want to stay there permanently. But it's
Wow.
set up like it kind of looks like a hotel. And so when you don't have to cook, you don't have to clean, you don't have to do any of those things, and you have the privacy of your own apartment.
So I love that idea. I mean, it's almost like you go out and you test drive a car. You can actually test drive your location, one of the rooms, what it would be like to live there, what it would be like to eat there, etc. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And so this is what we encourage when we have tours come in. I don't like to take people's time away from them because, they're like, oh, I only have about 30 minutes. Most of my tours actually take about an hour and a half to 2 hours because they
Wow.
come in, they start looking around, they start asking questions. Well, would you like to stay for lunch? Well, I would love to stay for lunch. So they get to experience what our food tastes like. And for me in elder care, mealtime is very important because not only is it obviously nutritional, but it's the socialization that they need. And so families can come in, you can try, what's your favorite meal? What would you like to drink? And they get to experience not only the food, but the atmosphere of dining. And like I said, you walk into our dining room, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and you hear conversations, you hear laughter. And having these families come in from afar and not have a clue what they're walking into, it's huge, Richard, because I want to show them this is the experience that I'm giving you, that we are giving you. And it's difficult because when I always tell everybody when I open my mouth, it comes from my heart, because if I can't take care of your loved one as I'm telling you, then I'm not doing my job properly. But
Wow.
we have fun here. We like I said, we've got great food, and it's just an overall really good experience. And after folks have been here for a tour, they're like, wow, that is nothing like I thought it would be. And again, I say, we're not the shiniest or the sparkliest. We're not brand new, but we've got good bones and we've got phenomenal staff and food. And it's a real good, you know, feel like you're walking into home feeling that they come when they get here.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, one of the things I'm hearing you say too, and the difference between skilled nursing, my experience with skilled nursing, when you're eating your lunch or dinner or breakfast, you're normally eating it in your room and you may be eating it in bed. Where it sounds like, from an assisted living perspective, there are dining rooms, some may be smaller, some may be very large, where there's a great deal of socialization during that meal process where folks can meet other people within the community. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And so we've actually had several residents. The friendships that are built here, Richard, is phenomenal. And I don't like to put it, oh well, they're all in the same boat, but basically at the end of the day, they're no longer able to stay at home alone. They're not eating correctly. They're not able to keep up with their housework, and it's exhausting not only for the elder folks, but when you have family that's trying to help support that part of it as well. And so as I state, have them come in here, let us take care of them and love them, and then adult daughter or son, or they can have their life back. And
Sure,
it's kind of like I said, it's like walking into, like I said, kind of a really nice hotel. And in their apartment, it's their own. They put their pictures on their walls of their grandkids. They put up their favorite window coverings. They bring their bed. They've got all of their personal things that they have at home. They bring them here to their home here. And that's why I don't like showing the empty apartments, because for me, it's like it looks like an empty shell. So that's what's very important for me when I take them on a tour and I kind of show them around and they're like, oh, yeah, this is nice. This is nice. And so when we get to that point of the model room and they get to see it set up, here's the couch, the chair, all these things, they're like, wow. And that is probably the biggest point for me, is having them understand that this is your home. You do whatever you want to do in your
Wow.
home.
So I understand, and that's a great explanation. I want to make sure all the people understand too. You literally can bring, I mean, where it's going to fit, and we'll talk about the size of your apartments in a second, but you literally can bring your furniture, your favorite couch, your favorite table, your favorite lamp. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, your bed. So that apartment, that room feels as much as it possibly can, uh, from the home, apartment, condo, whatever it may be that you left. Is that correct?
Yes. And that's what is so important to have people understand, that they're like, well, this is too small. I live in a 3,000 square foot home. But the other part, as we get older, Richard, we need to start downsizing. And that's kind of another interesting topic, because they're like, well, I'm not going to give my stuff away. And then, of course, you've got adult children say, Mom, let us help you with this. And a lot of folks they'll come in and they'll get things set up prior to their loved one moving in. And of course, at this point in the game, we have folks that have some, cognitive challenges. And so we've actually had a couple families, mom's on board, she decides to move in, family comes in and gets it set up as close to home as possible. And when they walk into that apartment, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm home. And that's what we want to make sure that these folks understand, that we're not taking things away from them. We want to, enrich their life and give them the opportunity to, continue to live their best life.
Sure. Wow. So let's talk about that. How many different sizes of apartments do you have, and can you explain that?
Absolutely. So we have studio apartments, and they're about 310 square feet. So they're not really big, but they are big enough that it's got a huge, big closet. So as I try to let folks know, with your living space, instead of having your chest of drawers in the corner, let's throw it on one side of the closet. So you've got one side where you can put your dresser, and on the other side you can hang your stuff that you hang there. Most of the studios do have like a little linen closet, and they've got a very good sized bathroom. So I know in some of the assisted livings they still have shared bathrooms, and I don't think anybody should have to share their bathroom with a stranger.
Sure.
And then the one bedroom suites are about 490 square feet, and they actually have, a separate bedroom with a big closet, a big living room, and then a kitchenette that has room for like a microwave or a Keurig, and like a kitchen sink with a refrigerator, freezer, just a little one. And then there again, another big closet, and then a big private bathroom as well.
Wow.
They all have their own independent heating and cooling. So if you want it 60 degrees while you're sleeping, you can have it 60 degrees. And if you want it 80 degrees in your living room, there again, you can have, all those are, you have complete control over the whole atmosphere in your apartment.
That's fantastic. Do you guys get husbands and wives that move in together?
Yes, we do. We actually right now actually have four couples, and probably the rest, I'm going to say, obviously are widowed. But our ratio, I've been here a little over 2.5 years, and it was about 80% female and about 20% male. And so it's balanced out more, where we have a fair share. It's almost equal as far as male and female residents. And it's kind of interesting. So the last two gentlemen that I've moved in, they're like, well, what are the women like there? And so of course, they can sit down and they can have their meals together. They can go out to the community garden and plant the tomatoes or prune the flowers. And then it's like, all right, bye, see ya, gotta go. And they've got their own space. So it's interesting watching these relationships build, because they're, again, I don't like to say they're in the same boat, but they're kind of all in the same home. And it's like a big 55 bedroom house. That's how I like to feel like it's that way.
I wasn't thinking about this question, but you're making me think about it. Have you seen relationships grow between a man and woman that came in separately, then all of a sudden met each other?
Absolutely. So we actually
Wow.
had a wedding last summer.
You're serious.
And I am very serious. So she was quite a bit younger than he was. Of course, they both had, ailments that kind of slowed them down. And unfortunately, he passed away in May.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and they got married. Family was on board. And of course, the other residents got to help decorate. We were able to help her get her wedding dress, and it was pretty
Wow.
fantastic, Richard. So yes, and that does happen. And so it's kind of funny when we do have new residents coming in, and when I first, my first step when I'm meeting these families, and I'm like, okay, he's going to get along really well with Harold. Well, she's going to get along really well with Jean. And so in my mind, I try to figure which direction that it's going to go. But absolutely, these folks are, this is their home and it's their social life. And the most unique part about it, Richard, is it's all in one spot. So if you don't want to leave the community, you don't need to.
Wow. And one of the things, and tell me if you see this, but what I've heard a lot in this industry and working with folks is, that comment, well, I'm going to stay at home and I'm going to die with my boots on. And for many people, okay. But for a lot of people, and I think you brought it up, a lot of times you're really isolated still in your home or your apartment and your condo. Maybe your kids live elsewhere in the country, elsewhere in the world. Maybe you don't have kids. And it sounds like what you're talking about, if they make that decision to move to a community like yours, there's a lot more socialization for them.
Yes, and that's one of the biggest things with, like I said, when I first meet these families, and they're like, mom's not eating very good. Well, dad's best friend, he used to go and have coffee, and he doesn't go anymore because all of his friends have passed. And so that's why, I kind of reiterate, you come to Brookdale to live. You don't come here to die. You come here to live. And and our staff is, the other part is when we do have new staff come on board, which we are fully staffed, which is a rarity. There's so many folks, so many communities that are still struggling with staffing. But I always tell them when they do come in, and I'm like, you're gonna get attached, and if you don't get
Wow.
attached, then maybe this isn't the right place for you.
Wow. And talking along these lines, so let's make up a fictitious woman. We'll call her Sarah. She's in her 80s. She's still living at home. Are you finding that more people like a Sarah have actually, with their adult children, put together, let's say, a comprehensive plan before they move to a community like yours? Or are you seeing more people that per a health event are coming from a hospital or coming from skilled nursing? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, what's interesting with that is it's about 50-50. So when I go out into our area and we do outreach, it's the churches, it's the library, it's the senior centers when you go out, and I love to educate. And I think there's a lot of fear there because they're like, "Pff, I'm not moving into a nursing home, as you
Yep.
said."
Yep.
And so just to educate and have them understand, come by for lunch, come by for a tour. And that's why I think it's so important about outreach is to have them understand, just because you come in for a tour and lunch doesn't mean you have to sign on the dotted line. Come in and experience it. But the other part is I let people know you need to investigate. You need to go out and interview. So why would I choose Brookdale over Dorian Place? Why would I choose Brookdale over Edgewood? And so it's all about the right fit, and that's why I think it's imperative to have families and prospective residents understand that what I'm telling you I stand firmly behind 100%. And like I said, just the networking, unfortunately, they're like, oh, mom's not ready yet, oh, she's not ready yet, and then you get a call 2 weeks later, well, mom fell and broke her hip, she's in rehab, she needs
Wow.
placement as soon as possible.
Wow.
So it's great having those relationships with the emergency room doctors, the skilled nursing facilities, and all of those, because we get to help along the way. So what I'm really working on over this next few months is, like I said, we're about an hour from Boise, and we do have a hospital here in Ontario. And when people get sent to the hospital, 90% of the time they get sent to Nampa, Boise area. So for me, the important part is to get in front of these discharge planners and these rehabs and say, hey, Grandma June fell, she broke her hip. I don't want her placed over here in Boise. I want her to come back to Ontario so she's not missing out on her granddaughter's T-ball game. And so I don't want to say I struggle, but in a sense I do, because our hospital here very rarely keeps people here. They all get shipped out. So there again, your relationships, your resources, and your outreach are very important. And like I said, I'm 100% for education, because
Wow.
the unknown is terrifying,
Yeah.
and it's a hard place to be.
That's fantastic. And you said something. I think a lot of people, again, have a misconception. So mom moves into an assisted living. She's stuck there. But it sounds like from what you're saying, if the granddaughter or someone in the family has a T-ball game, is in a bowling league, whatever it may be, can someone actually pick mom up and take her to the T-ball game or the bowling league?
Absolutely. So, and like I said, it's kind of under the consumption, as assumption that they move here. It's like, oh, they're going to be trapped forever. Absolutely not. We have no restrictions. We have them sign out before they leave. So it's kind of funny, because on the sign out sheet it says, where are you going, what time you leaving, when you're going to be back. Well, I'm like, well, that's none of your business. When I get back, I'm going to come back when I'm darn good and ready. But we have monthly fire drills, monthly elopement drills, and so for the safety of our residents, please let us know if you're going to go to the grocery store, if you're going to, like I said, you're going to leave
Sure.
for the weekend because granddaughter's graduating. So
Sure.
we really encourage family involvement as well. And I will tell you, Richard, when people move in, once they get settled in, usually that first, 2 to 4 weeks, they're like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah.
And then with the family saying, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I get to be the daughter again. I'm not taking care of mom all the time.
And I've heard that a lot too. Why didn't I do that sooner? It does, that adjustment period, obviously different per individual, but as you say, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe a little bit longer. But I've heard that a lot. Why didn't I do this sooner? Boy, I wish I had come here, sometime before this. Let's talk about care and safety for a second. So, you talked about the bathrooms. So, let's say someone's in a wheelchair. How are the bathrooms normally set up, wheelchair access, etc.?
So all of our community is all one level, and it's shaped like a big figure eight. So throughout the whole entire community, there are handrails, and there's also benches and chairs throughout the whole entire community, because we've got several residents that use canes or walkers or wheelchairs, and I think we actually have about 5 motorized scooters in our
Oh,
community.
wow.
Yes, and so all of the doors are wheelchair accessible, so they're the extra wide. And then in the bathrooms, they have big walk-in showers. There's lots of the safety bars. We also have I call them commode bars, but they sit beside it attaches to the toilet, and so it can they have these
Sure.
handles get up and down off the commode. Now, I'm going to say probably 90% of our residents are self-sufficient as far as bathing and toileting, but then you have the other portion that they struggle with that part, and that is where our staff steps in. And so depending on their level of care, so you've got somebody that's completely independent. I think we still have 5 residents that still drive.
Wow.
So as long as you have a valid driver's license and insurance, you can drive. That's not up to us to determine. So as far as with the wheelchairs, they're very accessible through the whole entire community. In fact, the dining room tables are just a little bit higher, so the wheelchair arms can slide under
Wow.
the tables.
That's fantastic. I'm assuming, bad word, but I'm assuming a lot of the folks who are on different types of medication, as a community, as Brookdale overall, how do you handle medication?
So we have it's called medication management, and it's where our staff we have certified. All of our med techs are certified. We have our health and wellness director, Rhonda, which is our RN, and then we have Misty, which is our health and wellness coordinator, which is our LPN. So of course, to be admitted into an assisted living, we require provider or physician's orders. And so there again, is June capable of taking her medications on her own? Absolutely. She sets up her little Medi set. She takes her 3 pills when she needs to, no problems or concerns. Versus George that comes in and he's got 15 pills, and that's part of the reason why he's moving in is because he's diabetic. He's not remembering to check his blood sugars. He's not sure if he took that pill. Maybe I need to take another one. And though, so at that point, it becomes we manage their medications. And a lot of this is based on their assessments at the time prior to moving in. And I like to use this term loosely as if are they a good fit. So with that being said, I believe probably 75 to 80% of our residents are very independent. And then there's the other portion that they've been here a while or they've been admitted where they have a higher level of care. And I have families ask, well, what happens if mom gets worse? What happens with this? And as I reiterate to these families, Richard, is when you come here, this is your forever. We like to state that we're part of this last journey, and whether we have you for 17 hours or 17 years, the most important part to reassure these families that regardless of what their loved ones physical ailments are, that's why it's important with our assessments that we do to make sure that we have a proper fit.
Wow. Now let's talk about the fun part, amenities. So what are you normally offering for people? Do you have guest speakers? Do you take them anywhere? What are you guys doing?
So we have quite a bit of things that go on around here. So we have our typical bingo. We have a full kitchen in our activity room. So they have cooking club. We actually just had our presidential nomination for it's resident council is what it's called, and so we've just nominated a new president and a vice president. And this is to give our residents that opportunity to voice their opinion. I really like this about living here. Well, I don't like this about living here. And so then we get to sit down we have to be invited by the residents to join in their resident council and to address, if, like I said, if there's things they love, there's things they're not happy with. We have our Brookdale bus. We take weekly trips to Walmart. We are going to
Oh,
go
wow.
to Bappy Farms. It's a pet sanctuary. We're going there next week.
Wow.
Um, we go to the senior center. They have dancing and music every Monday. And yeah, it's just a variety of things. We have it's called the Weezer Fiddlers. They come in twice a month. We've got
Wow.
some line dancers that come in. We've got a gentleman I just spoke with last week while I was at the senior center, and he has everything set up for karaoke. So we're going to get him
Wow.
on our agenda as well. So, and of course, a lot of it, Richard, is, we ask these residents, what do you enjoy? What are things that you used to do when you were younger? What are things you used to do when you lived at home and you weren't capable of getting out and about? Let us know what you want and what you need, and let's see if we can accommodate those.
Wow. So, I mean, again, someplace, I mean, a hospital, skilled nursing, no, these things aren't going to happen. And this nursing home that isn't a nursing home, that's called assisted living, and look at all the things you talked about and the trips you're taking and the things that people can do. And again, that decision, well, I'm just going to stay at home. Does that make sense for some people? Maybe. And does it make sense for other people to move to a community like yourself? As we kind of get close to wrapping this up, one thing that we have to talk about is that small little word called cost. Can you give me an idea what your apartments, how much they run per month?
Yes. And so actually the studio apartments right now are $3,655 a month. And then the one bedroom suites are $4,200 a month. Now, keep in mind, this includes the 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This includes the snack and the hydration cart. It goes around at least twice a day. So residents are offered food and drink up to 5 times a day.
Wow.
It's weekly housekeeping, weekly laundry services. It's all inclusive as far as we've got direct TV, we've got Wi-Fi, the transportation, all of
Wow.
those things are all included. Now, we do always have a little bit of incentives here and there that we can work with. Now, the other part of that, Richard, is how Brookdale is very unique compared to other assisted livings. So with assisted livings across the board, they usually have level 1 care. This is what's included in here. Level 2 care, this is what's included, and so forth. Well, Brookdale does it differently. It's more a la carte. So grandma moves in and she needs medication management, but she does fine with toileting and dressing, and she doesn't have any issues getting around the community. So what we're going to charge her for is just medication management. Now you have, another person that comes in and they struggle with getting dressed in the morning, or they have issues with getting up and getting to the bathroom in time. A lot of that is based on their assessment. And so, if we're not doing something for you, then we're not going to charge you for it.
Sure. Wow.
And so, yeah,
No, thank you. And that's obviously a lot. Most people, most big word, a lot of people don't really understand cost, whether it is bringing someone in the home, whether it's moving to an assisted living. And we want to make sure through what we're doing with this podcast, people have an honest understanding of what things cost. Last question to you. So, paying for that, are there certain types of payments structures you guys use to maybe help Sarah, that 85-year-old, out that wants to move in?
absolutely. So we do accept Oregon Medicaid, and that is a completely separate entity from us, and it's through the state. They do an actual physical assessment and a financial assessment. Then we have private pay, which it's paid privately. A lot of folks, they own homes, or hopefully they have the long-term care plans. Now we currently have, I think, 4 residents that did have long-term care. Now, what's unfortunate about that is it can take quite some time to get that in place. And that's what makes me, upset sometimes, because it can take up to 2 to 3 months before they actually get to use it, because the insurance companies are like, well, I don't know if you quite qualify or not yet. So that's a work in progress there. And then we also have, it's called Patriot Angels, and they work with the veterans as far as their aid and attendance.
That's
And
awesome.
so there's different things, and like I said, we do have incentives and things. We have retention. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the money part, and I'm with you, Richard, that when you start talking about money, it's like, oh, that's going to be expensive. But at the end of the day, is the safety versus the, knowing that they're someplace safe and taken care of. That's, you can't put a price on that.
I agree, and I'm a big believer from an education standpoint of getting these dollars and cents out there. People have to understand what they need to be saving for. And I really encourage people to save at a much younger age, potentially to help out older loved ones, but also themselves as they age, and understanding what it's going to cost to stay in the home, what it's going to cost to move to a community like yourself. Last couple questions, and then we'll wrap this whole thing up. If people want to get in touch with you, is there a good phone number or an email? What would you give out?
Absolutely. So I have my business cards. They go everywhere with me. And so our main number is area code 541-889-4600.
If you can repeat that.
541-889-4600. But I do prefer to have them call me on my work cell phone. Now, that is a part of my body because it goes everywhere with me. And that number is area code 541-709-1738.
Wow, that's fantastic, Darcy. This has been a lot of information, fantastic information. So people, hopefully sooner rather than later, and hopefully not in a crisis perspective, but it definitely can happen at that point as well. Really starting to get a better understanding of what a beautiful community you work in and you have, and what Brookdale can offer. So I'm going to wrap up, but I want you to hang on a second. And again, I thank you for your time today, Darcy.
Thank you so much, Richard. I appreciate it very much.
You're very welcome. So, what we always do when we get to this point, folks, I want to give you an email where you can reach out to me if you have comments, if you have questions, if you want to connect with some of the guests that we've had. Do you have a pen? And I'll wait a second. And that email is eldered2023 at gmail.com. ELDERED 2023 at gmail.com. And also on our website, which is pointsoflife.org, you're going to find our guide that we started putting together a week or two ago. We're going to have Darcy in there as well, and a lot of other people. It's just in the beginning stage, folks, as our podcast is, but we're going to add a lot of people in a lot of different industries in elder care all across the country. So I thank you all for your time today. Until we talk again, please have yourself an awesome day.